What's up, everybody? This is episode 89 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to everybody that's been supporting the wave so far. For those who haven't seen any of my episodes, go check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. And also, before we start, we got to give our shout out to our sponsors, the Players Circle. They're the brand new interactive app for basketball players to be seen. Go download that on the App Store and also check out their merchandise on their website. But without further ado, we have a very special guest this afternoon. He is one of New York City's most influential high school coaches. He's won 2 city championships, has won more than 700 games, and is one of the most winningest high school coaches on the public school level in the United States. Today, we have with us Mr. Ron Naclerio. Coach,
I appreciate it, Dave. But listen, being number 89, man. I mean, I figured I could be in your top 10 episodes. And, you know, I want to just get it correct. You said over 700. Well, it's over 800. It's actually 850.
wow.
You know, it's getting up there, you know. But what's really weird is it might be 851 or 852, hopefully, if there was no pandemic. You know, I mean, I managed to get through this like so many people. I didn't catch the virus, unfortunately. You know, people did, people we know and love. Yeah. You know, Lee Green, unfortunately, passed away. Dave Edwards, a security guard who was at Cardozo, Leonos Mosley, who ended up at Bayside. Joe Causey, his wife. Causey was the New York Post writer that everybody knew, that loved. He passed away. His wife was a Cardozo graduate, 1996. But I'm hoping, praying that the vaccines that started to be given out yesterday in England and that is supposed to start being given out in the United States and New York City tomorrow will be like the V. We were doing real well, now terrible, and now we're slowly but surely coming back up. I mean, Dr. Fauci, who some people are getting tired of hearing him when he was so pessimistic, but you know what? He's got to tell what he thinks is the truth. He's now saying stuff that we do want to hear. Everything he said in February, March were things we didn't want to hear. Now we do want to hear, like he said. The vaccines, he thinks, are excellent, beyond what he even was hoping for. Then he said, the vaccines, if once we get 65, 70% of the people taking them, there'll be herd immunity, which means we will very fastly, once it gets to that number, coming back to reality and normalcy. And he even said, he goes, if that's true, you'll see big crowds at Major League Baseball games this summer for the Mets and Yankees. Now, July and August is still 7-8 months away, but you hearing normalcy 7-8 months away, not praying a vaccine 7-8 months away. Exactly. So it's here, and I'm hoping that the vaccine companies who did a great job, whether you like them or not, you know, the Operation Warp Speed, all the money that the presidency put in, supposedly got these vaccines where they are. And I know a couple of doctors that called me in February and told me, goes, Ron, this virus is going to be a major, major problem. So I was like, come on. No, and unfortunately, they both were 100% right. I spoke to both of them Thanksgiving, and they said the complete opposite. Positive, that the vaccines are awesome. One is 90, 95%. One is 92, 94. That could be 96%. And they said any vaccine that's successful is considered ungodly. He goes, the flu vaccine is only 40 to 70% effective. So they believe that we will come back. Now, I wish everybody in the United States could take the vaccine tomorrow, and slowly but surely within a month or two, we would come back. But, you know, they can't make as many of the vaccines as quickly. But at least the V, which was going down, is slowly but surely coming up.
Yeah. That's great news, man. That's really good.
Because you know what? I can't take it. I managed to get through the spring because it was just stay home. The summer, it was getting warm, so you can go outside. You try to go to the park.
And the rims went back up in July. Matter of fact, I remember the day after I came back from Georgia, from this tournament in Georgia, July 6th. That's when they put the rims back up again.
To show, the people out there who do know me or don't know me, I still like to exercise. I still play 60 and over softball. I still play some basketball. And one of the funniest things I did in late June was I had to go outside and I wanted to shoot around. So I went to the park with no rims and I was just shooting. People were looking at me like you were crazy. Because it was almost like the scene in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson acting like the World Series was on and imitating it. But I had to do it. And now that it's year 40 for me as the head coach, not to be in the gym, not to be able to walk around Cardozo, put up signs for tryout, not to have tryouts, not to have conditioning, not to throw in the system, not to have scrimmages, it's really starting to bother me. Because now when I go to bed, there's no reason to wake
up in the morning, right?
Yeah. And it's nice to watch some college basketball. It's nice to watch some of the Cardozo kids like Tareq Coburn at 19 and 28 his last 2 games. Marcus Hammond against Syracuse. Ray Salnave at DePaul was supposed to play a couple of games, supposed to play against Seton Hall on Friday. But because of the virus in their team, it's canceled. But I need more because I was always used to watching the Cardozo kids that graduated playing in college and or the pros. But now I can't do it.
Yeah, it's not live and direct, right?
Yeah, I mean, like last night, I would have been at the Hofstra Stony Brook game.
I wanted to do that too. Yeah, it's crazy. I would have loved to have done that too. Well, I could have went, but I didn't reach out to the people at Hofstra to do that. But yeah, and even that whole setup is crazy.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, and you know what? The only thing that's keeping me mentally sane is knowing that each day we are legitimately 100% closer to coming back to normal. Now, will there be high school basketball this year? I pray. I know there will be a 21-22 season. September should be normal, kids in school. But I'm praying that we can get some sort of herd immunity, enough vaccines out of there, the young kids not getting it, or supposedly don't get it, don't transmit it, and that we can do what Oregon and California are doing. California is having their season start March 16th and the state championship game June 14th. Oregon is going to condense it. Oregon is going May 1st to June 27th. Now, if you told New York City Catholic schools, New York City public schools and private schools that, you know what, you might only have an 8-week season this year instead of a 22-week season, and you'll have to wait until April or May to do it. I think every coach, every player, every parent, every athletic director would say great. Because let's face it, 21 days from now, it's going to be January. Yeah. And slowly but surely, it's like so many good people committed a crime and got sentenced to jail. Yeah. I actually feel like I'm in basketball jail. I can't get into the building. Yeah. I can't get into the gym. I can't do anything. Yeah. To get into a gym in New York City right now, the only way you can get in is if you have the money to rent out a gym.
That's a lot of money, thousands of dollars.
And any public gym won't let you in.
Yeah, exactly.
All of the high schools won't let you in. So
community centers are still closed. Yeah. And if they are open, you have to know somebody.
Yeah. And then everybody there is scared that somebody might break protocol, not have the hand sanitizer, not have the mask, and God forbid if somebody catches it and something happens and they're blamed for it. So nobody's willing to take the risk. And it's obvious because you know what? I respect the virus. The virus has done a lot of damage. Do I fear it? I don't fear it. I mean, we have to come back. When you're a kid, when you're a real little baby, you take the measles shots, you take the polio shots. Right. You know what? If we have to do it, and I'm praying, even though everything now has become political, I do believe that the people with the medicines will never let politics get involved in whether the vaccine is safe, how safe, and the side effects,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I really would be disappointed if a politician could somehow get somebody that's involved with the vaccine and fudge the report. I don't think a person would lose their license and realize it. I mean, I think this vaccine, everybody that I've dealt with told me that this is a legitimate vaccine. Now, one of the things that makes me feel good is I've been doing a lot of these Zooms. I've been doing Philippine basketball. And yeah, I don't know how they got a hold of me. They have me on once a month, supposedly. Everybody in the Philippines likes what I have to say and
That's
the
good.
basketball drills, and they followed me on YouTube and Twitter. But the one person with who has a big Philippine contact is in Washington, D.C. And he's a laboratician, and he's involved with this. And when I spoke to him the other day, he said, Coach, the hospitals, the doctors and the nurses really didn't have a handle in February, March, and April how to handle this virus.
They didn't.
They were learning on the fly. He says, if you notice, October, November, and now December, they have a lot better feel, a lot better knowledge, a lot better ways of dealing with the virus.
Mm-hmm.
They found out that putting people on ventilators as quickly as they did caused even more damage, that not as many people need to get on the ventilators.
And
now,
then a lot of people that had that disease, unfortunately, were people with underlying health problems already.
Yeah, you know, like if you're 200 pounds overweight with diabetes and high blood pressure,
mm-hmm.
you know, you're asking for it. But you know what? Maybe it wasn't the COVID. Maybe you were ready to have a stroke anyway. I mean,
exactly.
You know, that's the one thing that I do hope for everybody that this virus did is make you realize you better try to stay in shape. If you're overweight, try to lose some weight.
Exactly.
Have your vitamins, eat properly, you know, limit your alcohol, don't smoke, because your health is really important. And,
absolutely.
You know, if you realize that if you're healthy and the virus hits you, it could just, all right, get lost, brush it off, compared to if you're not healthy, the virus hitting you like Mike Tyson in his prime, and you're lying there like you might not even live. But getting back to the guy from the Philippines in Washington, he says, not only do they have a better handle, the doctors, nurses, and the hospitals, he goes, the vaccines, he says, there's potentially 6 that are coming up. 2 are ready to go. The Amarina and the Pfizer, they're ready to go. And he says, just like the doctors and the hospital nurses got better over the months, even though they might have 90, 95% efficiency, they're going to try to make it 96, 97, 98 efficiency. Mm-hmm. They're going to actually, and they say they're going to, some laboraticians might even say, hey, let's try to find something that will physically kill the virus. Now, if we have 70% herd immunity, that means the people that take the virus can't get it, they can't spread it. So now we're down to X amount of people. Not everybody can get it. So the virus, which needs places to jump, A, B, C, D, E, F, they constantly do it, G, H, I, J, K, keep on bouncing. All of a sudden now, it runs out, and then that's when the virus goes away. Now, in 1918, the swine flu, that, you know, none of us were alive then. You would have to be 102 years old if you were born then. But the swine flu lasted 3 years, according to what I learned. We can't last 3 years. But and that slowly but surely went away. The reason why it took the swine flu 3 years was because they didn't have any vaccines then. We do. So enough about this damn virus.
All right, so my very first question for you is, what's Ron Naclerio's coaching philosophy?
Well, if I had to sum it up in 3 words, hustle, intensity, desire.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people knew I was a hell of a baseball player growing up, all city Cardozo, all Northeast region, honorable mention All-American at St. John's, got to the White Sox, did really, really well. Unfortunately, I got hurt. You can't steal first base. If you can't hit the ball, you're not getting the first, so you're in trouble. But in basketball, you never heard a coach. You heard a coach say you're shooting too much, you're dribbling too much, but you've never heard a coach saying Your intensity is too good. Your desire is too good. Your hustle's too much. So when you deal with young kids, the key is to get them to play hard, harder, and harder. And as you get to know each kid, you try to get their strength stronger and their weaknesses less weak. And as you do each individually, then you put it together as a team. There's a lot of coaching going on in high school because for a lot of people, it's the initial real learning of the game. People that go to college, a college coach, if they come from a good high school program with a knowledgeable high school coach, a knowledgeable assistant, that college coach already has a player that knows 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, maybe even 99% of the game because nobody knows 100. If you get a kid in high school, a lot of times it's their first time organized ball or real coaching. You know, a lot of the young coaches do a great job, but they could only do so much with a kid 10 or 12. Maybe put it in a zone play, maybe work on their balling. But as we get older, the game becomes advanced and the kids who were primitive in learning have to go immediate to advance. And it's hard sometimes, you know, because the kids can't always coast on their talent. No matter who you are, sooner or later, you got to coast on knowledge and hard work. LeBron did it, Kobe did it, and Michael Jordan did it. Nobody just strictly coasts on talent.
Exactly. So my next question for you is, when did basketball first begin for you?
Well, when I was young, in the 60s and the 70s, the world was different then. Meaning, basketball wasn't played year-round. The original AAU team was in the early 70s, was only one team, Elm Court. So they would just try to get the 8 or 10 best players. But then you played football in the spring and football in the fall. You played basketball in the winter, and you played baseball in the spring and summer. And I was a hell of a baseball player, you know, and I love baseball. When you're born average size, it's hard to be awesome in a sport that you need to be 6'7". 6'7" and 1/4 is considered average NBA size. Well, you know what? There are a couple of baseball players at 6'7". I don't see many basketball players at 5'7". But if you look at the Houston Astros, you see a guy 5'6", Jose Altuve, one of the Yanks all-time greats from Richmond Hill High School. Phil Rizzuto, 5'7". Yogi Berra, a great catcher for the Yankees, Hall of Famer, 5'8". So you can be born normal size. My roommate at St. John's, 5'9", from Lafayette High School. In the New York Met Baseball Hall of Fame, I think he's either 1 or 2 lifetime saves, Johnny Franco from Lafayette High School. So you can be. Now, if you took all of those guys I said and say, let's play basketball in today's era, they're locked into one spot, point guard. Would they have a left hand and a right hand, the quickness? No. So, you know, basketball is a sport that we all love. It's great. You get like if I had to kill an hour, I'd rather play a half court of an hour basketball than play an hour of softball because you could just be standing there and, you know, wait for your turn at bat, you know, and if you hit it, you maybe run to first and that's it. Comparing to running, you know, in basketball, you get a nice workout. I said half court because full court, when you get older, it's too much useless running because you miss the shot, the other team quickly fast break, and you just say, to hell with it, let him get a fast break. You know, half court, if the other team gets it, you'll quickly hustle to the top of the tee to guard your man.
Well, what part of Queens did you grow up in?
I grew up in Bayside, Queens. The house that I grew up in, I moved back in when, unfortunately, my father passed away, and I found my brother dead. I didn't want to leave my mother alone, and then April 2nd, 2018, my mother passed away. She was 92, so she lived a long and healthy life.
Rest in peace to Dr. Emil Naclerio, Miss and Mrs. Gloria Naclerio.
Yeah, you're doing your homework. I like that.
What was your brother's name?
Emil Jr. You know what? Emil Jr. and I were complete opposites. He looked like John Travolta. He was 6'4". He had a thick hair. He was a
Wow.
very good basketball shooter. He ran track for Cardozo, but loves music. I was the opposite. I wasn't as tall. I was about 5'10". As I got older, you know, what little hair I had is gone. And me, it's eat, drink, and sleep sports, baseball and basketball, basketball and baseball, you know. And, you know, I do follow football, but it's, you know, you grow up and you never know where life, what road life kicks you down. I mean, you see some people that you try to help as kids, and, you know, years later, they're stars in the game of life. Unfortunately, there's some kids that veer down the wrong road and, you know, they have to get a scholarship to the wrong place, Rikers Island, and they're spending 5, 10, 15, 20 years in a place nobody wants to go and nobody even wants to visit, jail.
Very true. So, speaking of your father, Dr. Emil Naclerio Sr., in 1958, he was actually a part of history. I'll let you tell the story.
Well, my father, he grew up in Bushwick, Brooklyn, one of 8 brothers and sisters, went to Jamaica High School, then went to LIU downtown Brooklyn. And he wanted to become something. And he decided he wanted to become a doctor. He applied and got accepted to Marquette Medical School in Wisconsin, where he decided he didn't want to become any type of a doctor. He wanted to become a heart and lung surgeon, a thoracic surgeon. Now, you know, I'm not knocking a dentist, stuff like that. You know, they're great. You know, they have to put their time in. But a heart and lung surgeon, you know, it's one thing if a dentist makes a mistake on a tooth, you can go get a crown or a cap. A doctor messing with a person's lung or heart can't make a mistake. In those days, my father went anywhere to increase his visibility, his knowledge, his wanting to learn. And he was one of the few white people that would go to Harlem in the 50s and the 60s. And he was a thoracic surgeon, that's for anything emergency in the chest, at Harlem Hospital. It was September 20th, 1958. He was on call, and it was on his way to Waldorf Astoria for a wedding with my mom. I was a little over a year. When my father got there, before cell phones, before beepers, the whole bit, there was an emergency at Harlem Hospital. So my father left my mom at Waldorf Astoria, raced up to Harlem Hospital in his tux, quickly changed, got into his scrubs, walked into the operating room, and he saw a patient with a knife sticking out of his chest. The 2 black doctors, Dr. Cordice and Dr. Maynard, were hemming and hawing. They knew who the patient was at first. The knife was touching his aorta. If you coughed or sneezed, the knife penetrates your aorta, and as Dr. Martin Luther King said in his speech, you drown in your own blood. My father realized, how do you tell somebody not to cough or sneeze? You can't.
Yeah.
So time was of the essence. He realized if he touched his chest, that touching sensation could cause the movement for the knife to penetrate the aorta. He realized it was better to remove 2 ribs from the side, got the ribs out, went in and got the knife out. He saved Dr. Martin Luther King's life. The next morning, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. My dad got up, went back, like all concerned doctors. He wanted to go back and change Dr. King's dressing to make sure no potential infection. When he got there, paparazzi snuck in, which then it was a lot easier, and took the picture of my father leaning over Dr. Martin Luther King, changing his dressing. That picture went viral. It was going to take Dr. King approximately 3 months to be 100% healthy. 3.5 months later, my father got a beautiful letter from Dr. King. My father and Dr. King became very, very good friends.
Wow.
in the remaining 10 years of his life.
You gave him 10 more years to live.
Dr. King knew he had to come back to New York because to continue the movement, the civil rights movement. Coretta Scott King did not want him coming back for obvious reasons. Dr. King and Coretta didn't trust anyone practically in New York, regardless of color of skin. He did trust my father. When it was time to come back, my father gets a phone call from Coretta Scott King. Coretta asked my dad and told him, Martin trusts you. He doesn't trust anybody else. You know what happened. You know he could be a potential target. Do you mind accompanying him then? My father then was also involved with the police academy and became a police surgeon. And that's where the relationship became really well. My dad not only accompanied him, Coretta felt confident. Then all of a sudden, when Coretta would accompany my dad, there was one time my dad, my mom, Coretta, and Dr. King went to a restaurant off of 35th Street near my father's office. I think it was called Chandler's. When my father would go and give lectures, because he was the doctor that devised how to put the pacemakers in. When my father would give lectures in Atlanta and Montgomery, he would look up Dr. King, just like Dr. King would call my dad when he was coming to New York. From there, my father hit it off with Daddy King, Martin Luther King Sr. I have a beautiful autographed book right here from Daddy King.
Wow.
Now, if you want to look at it on the inside, you can see it's autographed by Dr. King's dad. It says, October 21st, 1980, to Dr. Emil Naclerio, may God bless you. Love, Martin Luther King Sr.
All those years later, you still have that book. That's
well,
crazy.
How about this? The letter that I told you, it was going to take Dr. King 3 months to be 100% healthy. 3.5 months later, my father got a beautiful letter from Martin Luther King. I will read it for the viewers out there. It has stationary letterhead. It says Martin Luther King Jr., Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, 454 Dexter Avenue, Montgomery, Alabama. The letter is dated January 6, 1959. Dear Dr. Neclario, ever since leaving New York, I have been intending to write you at least a note to express my great appreciation to you for all that you did to preserve my life. Your skilled surgery, coupled with your genuine concern to me as a patient, combined to bring me from a very low ebb in my life to blooming health again. Please know that I will remember your gestures of goodwill so long as the cords of memory shall lengthen. I hope you have received our gift by now. It is simply a little way to express our gratitude to you for all that you did to ease the load of a difficult period in our lives. With best wishes to you and yours for health and happiness in 1959, I am sincerely yours, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's beautiful right there. That's
and then there were two stories. It was about 4 summers ago. I'm at Lincoln Park in Queens, and Rick Swilliger, who coached Walton for years, but became the Monroe in the Bronx head coach, was at the game. There were 2 games, 19 and under, and we were sitting it off talking. And in between games, he goes to me, he goes, "Hey, Ron, do you know what my father and Dr. Martin Luther King have in common?" So I go, "What?" So he said it again. "Do you know what my father and Dr. Martin Luther King have in common?" So I said, "Well, do you know what my father and Martin Luther King have in common?" He goes, "Yes, that's why I'm saying it." So I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Your father saved my father and Martin Luther King." So I go, "How did my father save your father?" He goes, "He was driving on the Cross Island Expressway, got off, got hit by a truck. He was in a Volkswagen, and the car was crushed. Your father was driving to the physician's hospital. He stopped. He realized my father had a collapsed lung.
Wow.
Handled it correctly. Yes. So it's amazing. And then here's a little cute story. I must have been 6 or 7 years old. I was a little kid. I'm watching cartoons. My father is in the shower, getting out of the shower. My mother is hemming my brother's pants. My brother was 22 months older than me. The phone in the house rings. Ronnie, get the phone. Ronnie, get the phone, they yell. I'm watching cartoons. Ronnie, get the phone. So I run to get the phone. Who's on the phone? Who's on the phone? So I answer the phone like they taught me to. Dr. Naclerio and Mrs. Naclerio's residence. Ronnie, who's on the phone? So I go, who's speaking? So they go, who's on the phone? Who's on the phone?
Mm-hmm.
So I go, I'm not sure. Some guy says he's a king. It was Martin Luther King calling to speak to my dad.
Wow.
My father comes running out. My father comes running out when he says, I'm not sure. Some guy says he's the king. He realized he was, got on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And when I met Martin Luther King, I remember he says, oh, you're the little whippersnapper that thought I was the king? So I did get a chance to meet him 3 or 4 times, but I was,
wow,
4 years old, 6 years old, 9 years old. I realized the greatness, and as I was growing up, I am white. There's nothing I can do about it. Just like there are people who are black, they can do nothing about it. But I came across, and I didn't realize it. My mother told me later on that then your phone number was in the phone book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I remember it's a different phone number now, but it was 718-224-5127. So people would call up, give me Dr. Naclerio's, I know he lives in Queens. So the phone would ring, and my mother would answer, is Dr. Naclerio? No, he's not. Do you know when he'll be home? Oh, he'll be home in a couple hours. Well, can you please give him a message? What's the message? The next time your husband saves and uses the N-word, we know where he lives. So I had that happen to my mother. My father had that. And it happened to me when I was in junior high. A lot of the ignorant, arrogant, uncouth people didn't like what my father did. I thought it was great that my father saved the life of arguably the greatest American that ever lived.
Right.
So, unfortunately, there are things in life that you go through that you just have to accept. I'm not going to change the world. You're not going to change the world. I like to think I've changed a lot of lives. I might have changed a lot of opinions. But hey, you know what? I'm at the point right now, I'm hoping, God willing, I can go another 30, 40 years on this earth. Hopefully another 20, 30 years of coaching. But, I realize you just try your best and life moves on.
Honestly, you're probably one of the few people that I can actually say that had a chance at meeting a leader like Dr. King. That's big right there.
Well, I am so honored. I am so honored because over the last 10, 15 years, not only have I gotten Martin Luther King awards and been honored, whether it was out in Long Island 4 years ago or Creedmoor State Hospital or Harlem Hospital or so many other places. Usually on Martin Luther King's birthday, I'm the pregame guest on the Knick game and the halftime guest on the Net game. They have me on. And for the fans out there, if you go to WHSAK.com, WHSAK.com, when HarlemSaveTheKing.com, you click on, there's a documentary coming out, but there's a 5-minute and 22-second trailer that is on WHSAK.com. On the trailer, it sums up exactly what we talked about in 522. What made it amazing when I showed my mom when she was still here, they didn't just have pictures of my father with Martin Luther King. They had live video. They had video of my father changing his dressing. Now, how did somebody get video from 62 years ago? Is
That's
amazing.
crazy.
But, a lot of people said I have accomplished a lot, and it's hard to brag about me, but I love bragging about my father. And I think, my trait of wanting to help kids and help people, I think I got from my father.
Absolutely. That's okay to brag about your parents. especially when they've done something as legendary as what he did. You know,
like on Facebook over the years, you see I'm putting up a lot of funny stuff, basketball stuff, inspirational sayings, stuff about former players or people who I met, when I'm with a Mike Krzyzewski, or I'm with the mayor, or when I'm with Fat Joe, or I'm with Mike Krzyzewski or whoever. And people message me. They go, excuse me, Neclario is not such a popular name. Did you have a father that was a doctor? And of course I would message it back, yes.
Yeah,
Or did you have a father that was named Dr. Emil? And I would say yes. And they would say, your father saved my life, or your father saved my wife's life, or your father saved my father's. And I have a lot of that. And it makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
I miss my father dearly. He passed away October 14th, 1985. It's been a long, long time. Yeah, he died. He was 69 years old. He died of congestive heart failure. He knew what he had. But it's good because for those moments that I'm reading it, or those people are writing it, I'm reading it, it's like he's alive again to me. Yeah. Even for a moment, he's alive.
35 years ago. That's crazy.
Yep.
And the reason why I said is because October 14th is actually my birthday.
You pineapple.
And it's funny? I share another birthday with Stephen A. Smith.
Stephen A. Smith. I remember he was at Thomas Edison High School.
And he was
in our division.
Here's the sad part about that. Because on the actual day that I was born, his brother also passed away.
Wow.
That's crazy. So wow. I guess his birth every year, like, yes, it's his birthday and everything, but it's also kind of bittersweet for him.
Yeah. It's listen, if it doesn't bother you, then something's wrong with you. But unfortunately in life, you learn to live with the highs, and there are definitely going to be lows in everybody's life. And you're going to have to learn how to accept them. And I reminded him of my father saying, when he knew he wasn't coming back home, he was at Columbus Hospital on 18th Street. He says, if I don't come home, don't cry. And, you're a big boy. You got to learn. Unfortunately, listen, if you had a parent that was 99 years old, and the parent went to the doctor, whether it be your mother or father, and the doctor says, your blood pressure is great, your diabetes is under control, your heart is tremendous, you're in great health, you're 99 years old. How much more realistically can that person go? It's not like he's 99, he's going to go another 20, 30 years. You read once in a while there's somebody 110, 114, but you're 99 years old. Unfortunately, the fourth quarter is late, under a minute maybe, because I don't know many people that are going to go 100, 101, 102.
He said, because the funeral home had several funerals already scheduled, my brother's funeral had to wait until October 14th, which was also my birthday. Oh, wow. So the funeral was on his birthday. That's crazy. But, yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on to your high school years at Cardozo. Funny thing is, a lot of people don't know that you also a graduate of Cardozo.
Yep. I played baseball, basketball, and soccer at Cardozo. How I played soccer, Ed Tatarian, who was a legendary baseball coach. Ed Tatarian, a legendary baseball coach, was also the soccer coach. He knew I could fly. I did the 60 and 6.38, which was ungodly. So he just put me on the soccer team, and I ran around. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was fun though. And I played basketball. I was in all Queens in the Long Island Press and B division then we were in. Then I went to St. John's where I played basketball, JV, and sub-varsity, but I was a hell of a baseball player. In fact, people don't realize that I actually went to Manhattan College for 3 days. And 3 days, yeah. That was the year Manhattan College started 3 days before Labor Day. And the Tuesday after Labor Day, I was transferring. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. Yeah, 3 days. And I actually had a sit out my freshman year. So that meant I could not play varsity baseball as a freshman. But, you know, it was worth it because I ended up playing on some great St. John's teams, got to the College World Series, led the nation in stolen bases, got drafted. Coach Cardozo was going to put me on the sub-varsity was as a junior. I was going to be like, you know, the last man walk-on as a senior, but Coach Cardozo knew that I was a hell of a baseball player. Coach Cardozo is like an uncle to me. He was very tight with my father. In fact, every year we take him out for his birthday. We go out 4 or 5 times a year. His birthday is January 4th. He's going to be 96. Unfortunately, this year, we usually take him to Lenny's Clam Bar on Cross Bay Boulevard. We have a nice little crew of about 15, 20. We love it. But we spoke, you know, over Thanksgiving the whole bit. And when this pandemic is over, we'll be back. But Coach Cardozo knew that Coach Russo had me nominated for the USA baseball team.
Wow.
So I made the USA baseball team, and it just so happened it was Florida for 2 or 3 weeks in January before St. John's started back up. That prevented me from being the walk-on, which I wanted to be. But the best thing was, because I was down there, and I showed potential to a guy named Walt Whitmire. Walt Whitmire was the director of scouting for Major League Baseball for the Chicago White Sox, and he drafted me. So if it wasn't for that, I don't know if a scout in the Northeast would have drafted me. But a scout with the clout of the director of scouting for the Chicago White Sox drafted me, and then here I am getting drafted, and I got to the minor leagues. And I got to the Major League camp 1980. I was probably going to make the White Sox as the 4th outfielder because that's when the DR designated runner was big. And like an idiot, I ripped the ligaments off my ankle for the 3rd time, diving into a wall. So what can you do? But life goes on. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be coaching Cardozo.
But yeah, what was Cardozo like back in the 70s when you were in high school?
Well, you know, we were a typical high school, big high school, about 3,000-4,000 kids. Baseball was the big sport at Cardozo then. Basketball, you know, we played second fiddle to all the good teams like Andrew Jackson, August Martin, Hillcrest. But then all of a sudden, we went to the B. We were in the B division. So we were in the B division. We got a couple of good players. Winston Nicholas transferred in from Long Island Lutheran. And all of a sudden, we managed to get to the B City Championship, lost to August Martin, a division rival, in the City Championship. We went to the A, and I was assistant coach then from 75 to 81. We went to the A, and we were 5-6 after 11 games. We managed to go on a 14-game winning streak. And when we got to the playoffs, we upset Andrew Jackson in the Borough Championship game at Queens College. Because then you had to win your borough. So then it was only 4 boroughs. So, like, if you won the borough, there would be 4 teams going. And I don't know how they did it with Staten Island, but there were 4 boroughs, so you would make it to the Final 4. Now you could actually have 4 teams from the same borough in the Final 4. So we beat Andrew Jackson in the quarters. We played Thomas Jefferson with Sidney Green and upset them. And we played Morris, which I think was 31-0 or 32-0 with Thomas Ridley and Dave Crosby. And I remember, you know, they were supposed to wax us. There was no 3-point shot then. There was no shot clock. Coach Madigan came up with a great strategy to hold the ball on a big court like St. John's. I think the coach, I forgot his name at Morris, made a big mistake because the preview of the game on a Saturday, he said, I stayed up all last night, Friday night, to think of ways Cardozo could possibly beat us. And he said, I didn't come up with any. Wow. But, you know, no, there was another game, too, when we played Benjamin Franklin, and we were losing 9-4, and Billy Reza, White Jesus, dunked on Keith Brown. Keith Brown tried to take a charge, made it 11-4 because it was a block. We were unlucky for Billy Reza. On the dunk, he broke his ankle. Could not continue, so we went from down. He took the foul shot and hit it, but he could not continue. We went from down 12-4. We won. We beat Jefferson, and we managed to upset Morris. I think it was 46-45 in a slow down affair. And, you know, the following year or two, Cardozo was struggling. They won 7 games. They won 6 games. The coach gave it up. He said, Ron, you're playing for the White Sox in the offseason. You got your degree. Go get your license. I'll let you coach the team because I want to give it up. And then when March comes, you go back to play. So my first year, you know, I would work out in the morning and the afternoon, you know, going to weight room with Cardozo. Practice would come, and the games would come. Tough season. I won 1 game and lost 21. 1 win and 21 losses.
Wait, before we go to you coaching, shout outs to the Cardozo graduating class of 1975. But also, let's get into St. John's a little bit. What was campus life like at St. John's back then?
Well, there were no dorms then. So if you found a dorm, you had to rent an apartment there. So like the basketball players and the baseball players that needed to stay, there were housing for them. It came out of the scholarship paid for it. But what hurt was a lot of the kids, and then New York was so loaded, a lot of the kids, when they found out they could go to St. John's and commute, the money for the rent, you were legally allowed to pocket. That was part of the scholarship. So if you went, yes. So if you were a kid from Andrew Jackson, or you were a kid from, like Walter Berry, from Ben Franklin, or, any of those kids, you lived in Queens, you commuted, and you got your monthly stipend for food and books and the apartment. Well, you know what? Now all of a sudden it was great because now you had money to buy a car. Each month paid a note. You had money to take a girl out for, on a date or something. And then all of a sudden the dorms came, and you have to stay in the dorms now. And a lot of the kids from St. John's now need the dorms because they're not from the New York City area,
right? And
they can't commute. So, it's a different type of scholarship now. It's still a full ride. You're not paying for the apartment or the dorms, but you could actually pocket it there. And a lot of people didn't know that.
Yeah. So let's talk about 1978 when you played in the College World Series.
I remember we had a great team. We were the first Northeast team to win 40 games in a year. Because of the weather, we didn't get a chance to play that many games. I think we were 40-18, which is a hell of a record. But in the Northeast, you might be playing a game April 1st, and you just got done shoveling the field. While in the South or the West, they're playing starting late February, March. We went on a spring trip that year. We went to Georgia. We played Georgia, Wake Forest. We played Old Dominion, North Carolina State, North Carolina. That was the only time I was at Chapel Hill, North Carolina, 1978. And we did really well against top teams. I think which that regional had. And we're playing Holy Cross, our first game with Ronnie Perry, who also played basketball for Holy Cross, who averaged 20 a game, got drafted by the Boston Celtics, but he was a hell of a baseball player. And with 2 men out, and we were up by 2, he hit a 3-run homer over my head in left field, over the wall. If there was no wall, I probably would have gotten it. And we were dejected. We had to come back and win 5 games in 2.5 days to manage to come back. And we slowly but surely did. And we knocked out, in our third win out of the 5 we needed, we knocked out Holy Cross 14-12. I remember the score was tied. I got the big hit to make it 13-12, and then I scored to make it 14-12. Then we beat Temple. Temple, St. John's in baseball in those years was Carolina Duke, was St. Raymond's Steppenette, was St. Raymond's Cardinal Hayes. What a rivalry. We managed to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to beat them again. And here we are. We have no pitches. Everybody pitched. Steve Bingham came back on a day-and-a-half rest.
Mm.
And he pitched like 6 innings, hurt his arm in the wind. I'll never say anything bad. But in that game, Pete Filson, who was a high draft choice of the New York Yankees, who pitched in the major leagues for the Yankees, was who we had to go against. It was 3-0 in the 5th inning. I remember Tommy Cipolla hit a single. Don Troy hit a double to make it 3-1. Eddie D'Alessio hit a double to make it 3-2. Carl Cambiathi bunted him over. I hit a single to make it 3-3. I got picked off first, but beat the throw to second. The throw hit me in the shoulder, went into left field. I got it to third, scored on a sacrifice fly. We were up 4-3. We ended up winning that game 14-4. And I'll tell you, after that game, to go to the College World Series, which is the equivalent of going to the Final Four in basketball.
Yeah, like I'm on newspapers.com, and I'm reading an old article from April 14th, 1978, in which you guys blew out FDU 15-2, and you had 7 RBIs.
We won 14-4. We got to the College World Series. We had the pitcher that was hurt. We lost a heartbreaker to Arizona State. They had Bob Horner in June hitting against us. Bob Horner was the first pick in the draft, went straight to the majors in June. And when October came, he got National League Rookie of the Year. They also had Hubie Brooks from the Mets. We lost a heartbreaker to them. We managed to win a game or 2, then lost to North Carolina, a team we beat earlier in the season. But you know what? Just to get there was tremendous. Now, if we ever got there again, which we didn't, I wouldn't have been so happy just to get there. You want to get there and win. But, life goes on, like I said.
Right. And I'm actually reading an article from April 14th, 1978. You guys beat FDU 15-2, and you had 7 RBIs in that game.
Yeah, I remember that. I had a game. I hit the hell out of the ball. Hit 2 home runs. There were a lot of Major League Baseball scouts there. I remember that game. Boy, it was fun to hit the ball like that. And, we had a great bunch of guys at St. John's. We had a different philosophy. The kids today do a little and they expect a lot. Like, I hit 2 shots. How come I don't have a scholarship to Duke at Kentucky? We had a different philosophy. We got 2 or 3 hits in a game, made a couple of great plays in the field, and we were hoping just to play the next day to be in the lineup. There was so much talent we had there, you could never rest on your laurels.
Right. So you got drafted by the White Sox in 79, right?
79. Got drafted I was sent to Niagara Falls White Sox in the A-League. Led the league in stolen bases, broke Omar Moreno's stolen base record. Omar Moreno, then it was a pirate organization. Omar Moreno had a hell of a major league career. I was selected to have the most promise by a team. I went to the instructional league. I was on the fast track because also my speed was so good. And then that was when Chuck Finley, who owned the Oakland A's, he took a track star, I think it was Herb Washington, and made him a pinch runner. So the White Sox were going to use me because I was a hell of a defensive player. I could steal bases, and I could hit. But I was destined to be the 4th outfielder that year, and hopefully work my way into the lineup. But you never know. An injury, injuries happen, and you can go from sitting in the penthouse to all of a sudden sitting on the curb crying quicker than you knew.
So how was it, with that injury? Like, basically, did you feel like, wow, like I lost my chance at making the big leagues?
Oh, I definitely felt it. It still bothered me a couple of years later. And then, when Johnny Franco, my roommate at St. John's, got drafted a couple of years later, made it, he said to me, he goes, Ron, I always thought you were going to be like a Mookie Wilson or a Lenny Dykstra type player. I was that type of a player. A little small, but I could hit the ball, and, it was great hearing it from Johnny. But, unfortunately, people don't realize Johnny Franco hurt his arm his junior year at St. John, freshman year at St. John's, and then sophomore year. And my father got involved and sent him to some of the top people. And thank God Johnny quickly overcame the arm problem, because if Johnny had arm problems, he would never have gotten drafted that high and would have made it. He wouldn't have made it.
So, when did the opportunity to coach at Cardozo come about?
Well, my first year after graduating, I came back and helped as an assistant coach. He always liked me around. Al Madigan loved me. He wanted me around, so I did that. The following year, he asked me to do it again. My junior year at St. John's, I got an athletic administration degree. So my internship was to be with Brian Mahoney at Manhattan College to help him out. And I would get 18 credits to being there the whole year. But being a student, being a top-flight baseball player, playing JV and then sub-varsity for St. John's, commuting up to Manhattan College to spend 2-3 hours a day there, coming back rush hour traffic was just too much. Bernie Beglane, who wrote for the Long Island Press and who was in charge of the athletic administration program at St. John's, realized I was doing 30 hours of work in a 24-hour day. He said, Ron, the commute would take you an hour and a half, sometimes one way, and then come back. So it'd be 2 to 3 hours with the commute because of the traffic. And then you had to put it, he goes, that's 6 hours a day. This is what I do. Go back to Cardozo, and your internship will be with Mr. Madigan, because he knew Madigan, and it made it a lot easier. So I would drive to Cardozo, which was a couple blocks from my house. I'd put in my 2-3 hours a day, and I'd still have 3 extra hours that I didn't have to do going to Manhattan College working for Brian Mahoney, where I could study, do my homework, do a report, and, exercise and work on my game. So thank God Bernie Beglane saw that I was trying to bite too much, put too much food in my mouth, and realized you can't do it. And then what happened was...
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Then what happened was I got drafted. Mr. Madigan said, listen, I'm getting tired of coaching. I think you'd be a great coach. I don't know what he saw in me. He must have saw something. Go get your license, which was easy because I had all the degrees. And I got the job. And then the first year, we were 1-21. I remember going to spring training, and I got hurt in spring training. I came back, and then it ended up, the California Angels picked me up, and it just didn't work out. My injury didn't heal sufficient. I got hurt again in La Casa Grande, Arizona, and I was really using 4-letter words because I said, I can't believe, because how hard I worked to get back to be 100% healthy, and now it's hurt. But it wasn't in the cards. And here I am back at Cardozo, substitute teaching and coaching. And I made sure 1-21 wasn't going to happen again. And losing 3 kids that I kind of realized were more cancers that were seniors, with the same team back and 1 sophomore from a junior high coming in. Because then a lot of kids in junior high went to 9th grade and then come as a 10th grader. And this kid went to the same junior high, went to Bruce Smith, junior high school 67, Louis Pasteur, and he did a great job. And we were 21-4 the second year. And since then, most years have been great.
So after that 1-21 season, like a few years later, you had one special talent in the building He was probably the first big player you ever had, Duane Causwell.
No, he wasn't in the building.
Oh.
What happened was, Duane was a freshman at Andrew Jackson.
Oh, so he was a transfer.
He was a sophomore at Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
It ends up, I'm playing softball, and we have a 9 o'clock in the game morning, late June, at Creedmoor. So we only had 8 people that day because 2 guys were firemen getting off work at 9. They would be there 9:15. We didn't want to forfeit the first game. So I needed this one guy to come. So they're yelling, Ron, make sure he's here because we didn't want to forfeit. So I walk across the street to the YMCA. I see this big kid looking like he was 12 years old walking down with a basketball. I go, hey, you. So he's looking around. I go, you. He goes, you play basketball? He goes, yeah. Are you good? He goes, yeah. Now, he looked like he was 13. About 6'8", 6'9". So I go, you in junior high? He goes, no. So I said, is he in elementary school? So he goes, no. I go, you in high school? He goes, yeah. I go, where do you go? Andrew Jackson. I said, oh, my God. But make a long story short, I said, I don't know you. I know the whole team. So he said, well, I was ineligible. So I said, what? So then they're yelling to me, leave this kid alone. Call him, make we want to forfeit this off again. So I go, so you're going back to Jackson next year? He goes, no. I go, why not? He goes, I'm going to Van Buren or Cardozo. So I go, why those 2 schools? So he goes, both coaches called me. They want me to transfer. So I said, you're full of crap. I'm the coach at Cardozo. I know you are. But there was something in his voice that was telling me the truth. So I quickly made the phone call. I wrote my number down on a softball box. By the time I got home, his mother called. She explained, no, that the guidance counselor of Cardozo and Van Buren said that. She couldn't get him in to Cardozo. She was going to send him down to his grandparents' house in Kingstree, South Carolina, a small town, because he was messing up badly. So she went to the placement center. The placement center wouldn't send her there. I said, give it another shot, beg. So all of a sudden she called me. He got accepted. But when he tried out, he couldn't play. He couldn't play. He was a bum. So, but I took him but he was athletic. He could run and he had good hands. So I would take him to the park, PS 46, 219th Street, 64th Avenue every day. We worked out. Slowly but surely he got better. Now we had a lot of talent that team. We had Greg Scott, Kevin Story. We had a lot of good players. But Duane grew to be 6'10", 6'11". A lot of schools started recruiting him. I took him to some camps with some of the guys. Schools were noticing him. Virginia was involved. Maryland was involved. And then, I don't know, a lot of the people might remember, Robert LeBird, who went to Clinton, 7'3". He went to Temple. John Chaney recruited him. And during their exams that they take before the physical exam, before the start of the season, they found out he had Marfan syndrome. He couldn't play.
Yeah.
Robert LeBird's bad luck became Duane Causwell's good luck, because now the center they thought was going to be their center for 4 years, because he was a freshman.
Right.
Now they have to go recruit another center. I get a phone call from Dean Demopoulos, who was the assistant, asking me about this kid. I told him he'd be perfect. He came up, saw him play in the game. Duane did well. We played at Edison. Dean spoke to me, and I really knew that it was in the cards, because he showed up Tuesday, Dean Demopoulos, to a game at Edison. Wednesday, we had practice at 3 o'clock, because then we got out a little early. And Coach John Chaney was in the gym.
Wow.
So he knew. And it came down to West Virginia, and when Chris Brooks went there, West Virginia and Temple, he ended up picking Temple. He had a great 4 years. And in 1990, David Stern
called his name,
walked up to the podium and said, with the 18th pick in the first round, the Sacramento Kings select Duane Causwell. We were down because the Knicks had the 17th pick, and it came down to him and Gerard Mustafa. And the Knicks they said it was going to come down both of them. He wanted to go to the Knicks. Patrick Ewing was his idol. He didn't mind backing him up.
Mm-hmm.
And we were hoping Gerard Mustaf would go 15 or 16.
Mm-hmm.
And if he did, Duane would have been a Knick. But you know what? It turned out he went to Sacramento. He got a chance. I think he played in the league 12 years. Still holds the record for most block shots in a game, 10 for Sacramento. Most block shots in a season for Sacramento, and holds the Miami Heat record for most rebounds in a quarter, 15. On the negative note, 4 or 5 of those rebounds in that quarter were his own misses that he got. So. But he had a nice 12-year career in the league, so that was good.
How did it feel seeing one of your own players get drafted?
Oh, it was like I got drafted. Seeing what happened to me with the White Sox and my dream ruined, to see a kid that I nurtured, coached, loved, put so much time, effort in, live his dream, was tremendous. And I remember I would go to all the sports bars, because then to try to get them to put it on, they had the satellite dish to watch the Sacramento King games that would come on at 10:30 at night. And boy, was I nervous watching it. But as you get used to it, you get used to seeing your players, in college, in the pros, and you can exhale and say, listen, regardless of what they do, hopefully you root for them to do well. If they do well, great. If they do pretty good, great. If they don't do so well, they're living a dream, and that's part of sports, having a bad day, and they'll come back from it. And, because I'm so intense, and I actually took my intensity to the same level, rooting for them to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, at one point, I believe Lloyd Gaines, you as in the book about Lloyd Gaines, they said that you wanted to get him into Cardozo.
Well, what happened was I got to know Lloyd through a friend of mine, Arnie Herskowitz. He was living with his one grandmother, 508 New Jersey Avenue, across the street, 1 block away from Thomas Jefferson. He could never get up in the morning and go to Jefferson. Right. So then Lou Dalmeida sent him to Oak Hill. It didn't work out. Lou Dalmeida wanted him with me because he figured he needed a big brother figure and hoped he can get him in. He brings him to the high school placement center, and a lady at the placement center whose son played for the Gauchos, who Lloyd paid for his tuition, was there, so he thought it was going to happen. But the lady brought it to his supervisor. He wasn't in the zone, and his grades were so bad they didn't want to send him there. And unfortunately, Lloyd was sent to Andrew Jackson. And we ended up having to play against him. But, I don't know if Lloyd would have made it at Cardozo, because he would not have been able to get up every day, go to class, and do the work. Yeah. He should have been probably put in a learning disability program, which at that point he was not.
So I think you probably ended his high school career, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we did. It was a great game. What was it? February 12th, 1986? 86. Yeah, my father died in 85. Final score was 69-63.
Yeah.
People, the haters, oh, you got Lloyd to throw the game. Lloyd didn't want to win. Lloyd had 31 points, 12 rebounds, 6 blocks in the game. Come on, cut it out.
Yeah, he definitely didn't throw that game. Y'all just beat them.
No. So. But hey, what can you do? And that was the start of Cardozo climbing the mountain, and on the top of the mountain being considered, one of the elites in Queens. And then over the next 20 or 30 years, we managed to stay on that mountain, sometimes by ourselves. Sometimes we had to share it a little. Sometimes we shared it a lot. But we've been on that mountain as the king of Queens. Teams have come along, and, and Andrew Jackson for a couple of years, and Forest Hills, and Edison, back to a campus, a construction, now a John Bound. But thank God we're still, the king of Queens.
Yeah, and you were also a co-author of that book that came out in 1990.
Sleepy and Other Playground Legends. Tales of Drugs, Violence, and Basketball.
Which they re-released a couple years ago. Like, how did it feel being the author? With shout out to my man John Valenti.
John Valenti put most of it to writing. I had to explain everything to him. So what I was verbally saying, he was physically writing. To give John credit, he knew so many people. So he not only picked my brain, he picked everybody's brain.
Right.
He spent time with Lloyd. And the book is Sweepy and Other Playground Legends.
Right.
Tales of Drugs, Violence, and Basketball. And when you say and other playground legends, there were a lot of the legends were there. Fly Williams.
Yeah.
So many. Carlton Hines was in there. Richie Adams. There were a lot of funny stories, a lot of sad stories. But that book was selected to be included and voted on, and it is in the Springfield Hall of Fame, the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield.
Wow.
Basketball, it's in the basketball library. And everybody who's read the book loved it. You have Lawrence Pollard in there in the story, who now is the coach of Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
You have so many stories. John Valenti dedicated it to several people. In my dedication, I dedicated it to two little kids to not blow it at the time. One kid was Stefan, another kid was Rafer. Their last name, Stefan Marbury and Rafer Alston. To make sure that the book, if they were included in the book, they would be a positive in the book, not a playground legend. Because playground legend, when you have a chance to be an NBA player, NBA star, NBA vet, you don't want to even associate playground legend.
Right. Oh yeah. So in 1988, something happened with you at Cardozo, whereas I think the principal, allegedly you were fired.
Well, the principal at that time, Bertram Linden, he was anti-sports. He said the school with the least physical activities, the best. He didn't like the fact that now we were getting really good, and kids from South Jamaica, many of them black, would apply to want to come to Cardozo. And he tried to use the minorities. He would try to get Asians in. It turned out to be a very ugly situation. I got a very good lawyer, Tom Rohn. The Board of Ed threw the case out quickly. Made Bertram Linder apologize. We had a lawsuit that unfortunately took its twists and turns to sue him because the defamation of my character. That really hurt. Because when you're busting you behind that, listen, it wasn't like I was changing grades. It was kids were applying.
Right.
And of course he tried to find one thing. A kid who played baseball for Andrew Jackson, Montserrat Bowles, was going to try to transfer to Cardozo to play baseball because Jackson baseball was terrible. Cardozo baseball was awesome. Not even play basketball. He tried to say I was the guy that recruited.
They tried to recruit him. Wow.
So I said, why would I even attempt to recruit a baseball player when I'm not the baseball coach?
Wow.
And the kid's not even that good a baseball player.
So basically, he was reaching. He did everything.
Man, yeah.
He did everything he could possibly do to get you out of the way.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Everybody in life has that one time where somebody blesses you, grabs a hold of you, and guides you or pushes you to an avenue that leads to some success that without that person, who knows? But then you always have that one time, that one moment, that one person is a hater and will make up hate, fake the hate, talk the hate for whatever reason. And that was my time. And thank God. And you know what? What's funny is I'm wondering if he succeeded in what he was trying to accomplish, would I have been a college coach then? Would I have been a pro coach? So maybe that would have turned into something now, 32 years later, that I would look back on. But, you know, you could only live each day, try your best, do what's right, get down. I believe in God. I say my prayers. I go to church and hope that you get blessed, you know. And when things go wrong in your life, you manage to find a way to navigate the rough seas.
So now we get to a few years later, and you got to coach two very special players. One of them you already mentioned, Rafer Alston, and the other was Duane 40 Woodward. What was it like coaching them at the same time?
Well, it was great coaching them. The problem is Rafer wasn't always eligible. So it was sometimes Rafer and Duane, but I could always count on Duane. You know, unfortunately, Duane came from good stock. Duane, I didn't have to worry about going to class. Duane Woodward, if I had to say who was the best basketball player, student athlete. I don't mean a kid with a 95 average that wasn't that good. I mean, you know, Duane was close to a 90 student, but Duane was borderline NBA. He was all Big East, played in the Big East, had major scholarships, was the Iron Horse Award winner. The Woodward brothers, Duane Woodward and his younger brother, 20, Brian Woodward, are the only two brothers to win the Iron Horse Award for the PSAL given in basketball. Bernard King did not get it. Butch Lee got it that year. Albert King got it. Okay, so the King brothers didn't get it. The Woodwards are the only one. But what's hard is, and you know, I was young and, you know, I was trying to do so much for Rafer, you know, and Duane, you know, in his own way, I think he got jealous.
Right.
You know, but Duane didn't need as much help. Duane didn't need me waking up in the morning, calling him to school. Duane didn't need me walking into class to see if Rafer was in class. Duane didn't need me checking up on his homework. Duane didn't need me going to his house. And, you know, I think Duane took it a little the wrong way, and there was a little animosity. But
yeah,
hey.
like I read something in the paper where basically they tried to say that that you felt Rafer was better than him, but I guess you were misquoted.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunate. That's one of the things I realized, you know, you can't be misquoted, you know, and I was misquoted. And unfortunately, you know, you get misquoted, but it's in the paper and people read it, and, you know, the paper could lie. Right. The paper could lie, but they believe what they read in the paper.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, of course, the paper doesn't the next day, you know, take back the quote. But listen, at that point, Duane was a great, great player. If I had to give them, Duane was a 98 player, Rafer was a 99. But they both were great players, you know? And I wish both of them were always eligible. But
well, one of them.
You know, well, Duane I never had to worry about. But, you know, I think Duane didn't understand it. I think maybe Duane is a coach now at Seton Hall after being at Monmouth and Fordham and Queens and SUNY Maritime and Long Island Panthers, you know, would realize coaching is hard, because when you give player a lot of time and effort, sometimes player B, C, D, E, and F take it the wrong way.
That's true.
You can't treat everybody the same. You know, when we had the national camp out at the ABCD camp with Sonny Vaccaro, Duane and Rafer were both invited. You know, when there were colleges, like when we went down to Rutgers unofficially with Bob Wenzel, I took Rafer and Duane. You know, and I'm sure Duane probably felt a little. He was in Rafer's shadow, even though Rafer was ineligible and he didn't deserve to be in that shadow. But, you know, when you deal with humans, when you deal with teenagers, there's always something. And, you know, the coach gets the heat, you know, so.
And yeah, it seemed like Rafer, he didn't have the most stability during his teenage years.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
Rafer, unfortunately, you know, he was involved in so many things, and, you know, got involved with the law several times with myself and Billy Medley, my assistant, and Mike Bell. May rest in peace. We had to go above and beyond, you know, and it became a full-time job. It became a full-time job at Rafer, you know. But thank God, Rafer slowly but surely, slowly but surely matured, took the game serious, realized what he was blowing, because it came close to where he could have blown it.
Yeah.
And he managed to be a playground legend, but also an NBA seasoned vet for, I think, about 10, 11 years. So Rafer can look in the mirror and be proud of what he's accomplished.
Yeah, man. That's, yeah.
You're doing your homework, I can see here, huh?
Yeah,
Checking
man.
up on stuff from 30 years ago, 20 years ago.
So,
you know? Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What I get in my second grade English test in June?
Nah, that's funny.
All right.
So, let's go down a few more years later. 1999.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Royal Ivy, Tremaine Singletary, Ryan Special Effects Williams. Let's talk about that championship season.
Brian Woodward.
And Brian Woodward.
Well, as sophomores, we lost the heartbreaker to Newtown in the semifinals, where if we would have won, we would have went to the championship to play Paul Robeson. It hurt because I found out several years later that the star point guard on Newtown, Chris Sandy, may rest in peace, who played for Fresno State, got killed in a car accident playing pro overseas. He was a fifth-year student that Newtown didn't realize that if they would have known, we would have won the game. And the following year, Brian Woodward, who was averaging 32 after 3 games, tore his ACL. We managed to have a great team without him. We were like 22-2 or 22-1 without him. And the principal then, who was a very tough principal, we thought we were going to get Brian Woodward back because it was the knee. But we didn't realize it was a torn ACL until the morning of that game because he was misdiagnosed. But what also made it bad is we had a 6'7" kid, Tremaine Singletary, who Cardozo had a rule then you had to do 25 labs during the year. And if you didn't do 13 by the midway point, regardless of your grade, it became a failing grade. So he had like a 90 and he did like 11 labs, and the AP in science and the principal wouldn't change the 60. But if he did it in June, so we played opening round, not only without Brian, but we played the whole year without him, minus 3 games. We lost Tremaine Singletary. Springfield Gardens comes in with Jason McLeese and other guys. They couldn't miss. And we lost the heartbreaker. And I remember Ryan Williams as a junior punching the cement wall, and, you know, I had to grab him, you know, after the heartbreaking loss. And the pain of that loss and the pain for Brian, we used to come back 98, 99. We took it easy with Brian early because the doctor said he was cleared to play December 1st, but I know Brian was chomping at the bit November 1st. You know, the goal was to get to March. The goal, everybody knew, even in the magazines, the goal that year was either we win the city championship or it's a wasted year. Even getting to the chip. Well, we had a hell of a year. I set up a really tough schedule. I played everybody on the road. Christ the King and Christ the King. Now I call it Christ the Queen. I'm only fooling now.
Yo, why you love calling him Christ the Queen?
Right? You know what? Listen, they're the best program in Queens, you know. But, you know, it's friendly boxing. You know, it's friendly boxing.
Shout out to my man,
And in St.
Arbitello.
Raymond's, we went over there with Gary DeCesar. Then we played Rice at the Gaucho Gym. We played St. Joseph Metuchen with Jay Williams, the Duke star. And you ought to see, we took a lot of lumpings. But those lumpings made us even tougher. The playoffs came. We were really nervous because the previous year we got upset the first game by Springfield. Now we're playing a talented Hillcrest team, and the game was close. We managed to win by 14. We excelled because 1 down, 4 to go. Then we played at Elm Court. We played Columbus with a very good player, Jewel Wiggin from Columbus, who I think he played Major D1 somewhere. Royal Ivy had problems stopping him, and we got nervous. But we managed to get the lead. We won the game by about 18. We played the quarters at Lehman against Newtown, a team that we lost 2 years previously. They had Smush Parker and Charlie Villanueva. And that was a hell of a ball game. We won, but we were up 4-6 the whole game. It was amazing. 4-6, 6-4, 4-6, 6-4. We managed to win by 8 or 10. Then the semifinals, we played Stinkin' Lincoln. Stinkin' Lincoln at St. John's. Tiny Morton was the coach. They had Eric King, John Santana. That was a tough ball game. Earlier in that year, in the finals of the Gobbler Snowflake, we managed to beat them in overtime. So basically, it was like a coin flip game. This game, we played very, very well. Royal Ivy played awesome. Everybody played awesome. I remember Ryan Williams complaining to me that he wasn't getting enough help on the boards defensively. And I yelled at Ryan. I said, Ryan, you hear me yelling at Tremaine. You hear me yelling at Brian. You hear me yelling at Royal. You hear me yelling at Chabar. You hear me yelling at Mike Salamanca to help you. But what do you want me to do? They're not, for whatever reason. And that game was on Channel 31. It was broadcast by Al Albert, Marv Albert's son. And we managed to watch the game. It was amazing. Is Ryan Williams had 26 rebounds that game.
Wow.
What was awesome, that tied the Cardozo record. Phil Mills had 26 and LeRae Hardy 26. That's the record. But what's amazing is Ryan Williams had 9 defensive rebounds, where it was him and 3 or him and 4 Lincoln guys. So we managed to win that game 62-54. Now we're at the Garden. We're playing a very good John Kennedy team. They run a great Amoeba 1-1-3 defense. We're favorite. They upset the number 1 seed, Robeson, in the quarters as the 8th seed. We were the 2 seed, even though I thought we should have been the 1. But we go to the Garden at the press conference. And what was funny is I took Royal Ivy, Ryan Williams, and Brian Woodward. Brian Woodward that year got the Player of the Year. Public school was first team All-City. Royal was second team All-City. Ryan Williams was second team All-City. So going to the press conference to go into, because I don't like taking kids out of class at all, the best and quickest way was railroad in, railroad out. So I met the kids. We were on the way to the railroad. I was wearing a suit and tie. Mm-hmm. Ryan Williams goes to me, Coach, what are you doing wearing a suit? I said, I got to wear a suit, blah, blah, blah. So we don't think nothing of it. On the way home on the railroad, Ryan goes to me, goes, Coach, you're not wearing a suit Saturday, Sunday. The game was Sunday. He goes, yeah. He goes, why? He goes, the PSAL asked me to wear the suit. He goes, no. And it became an argument. And they said, wait a second, Coach, you always told us to do it the same way every day, the right way. And look where we are. You told us that. We believe you. Now you're going to flip on us and you're going to wear the suit? So we meet at Cardozo. And Mike Quick did the game. Game was live on MSG Network. I meet them at Cardozo. The earlier game I know was Francis Lewis versus Bertram. Francis Lewis won, but I meet him at Cardozo, and they see me in the suit. And Ryan Williams was bugging out. They didn't want to go to the game. So I quickly opened up my trunk and I showed him that I had my sneakers, my golf, and my coaching, the pants that I always got, you know, the stuff with the Cardozo, with the keys. I brought them with me. So they kind of exhaled. So the game starts. We're up 2-0. But next thing you know, we're down at the half by 5. My assistant, Billy Medley, brings him into the locker room. I wait to get the halftime stats because everything was going wrong. But we were close, but everything was going wrong. So when I get in there, I quickly start going over the corrections, and my assistant says, Ron, shut the hell up. The kid's got something to say. What are you talking about? So Ryan gets up and goes, Coach, you changed on us. We're losing because of you. We're in a suit, blah, 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 right? They believed that we were losing because I was wearing a suit. So Royal Ivy runs and grabs my bag and he goes, Coach, unless you change, we're not going back out there. So I remember there was about 3 minutes on the clock because in the garden locker rooms, they have the clock to show you how much time is left on the scoreboard. So they went out for the warm-up. They saw me come out, and next thing you know, we won a nail biter. And, I remember that game. That was great, though. That was great. That was
How
great.
did it feel winning that was the very first championship in your tenure?
Well, it felt so great, but was a little not fair was the Knicks were playing that night. Jeff Van Gundy was at the game rooting for us. If the Knicks would have lost that game, Jeff Van Gundy probably was going to get fired. I'm talking to Jeff because I know Jeff for years. The game is over. They're interviewing Royal Ivy, who got MVP, and Brian after the game on the MSG network. They're interviewing me. Then I'm speaking to the reporters, blah, blah, blah. By the time I got back to the locker room to enjoy it, they were escorting us out of the locker room because they had to get ready for the I think it was the Indiana Pacers were playing that night. So I was like, we couldn't really enjoy it. And I thanked them. But that night, there was a get-together at Royal Ivy's father's house. And I told the kids that night, when you get up tomorrow to go to school and you get on the bus, it's going to be the greatest feeling you ever had. Because either whether the kid is on the bus going to Cardozo or it's going to be another kid going to another school, they're all going to recognize you. They're all going to talk to you. And they were 100% correct. And that afternoon, that practice was a fun practice because that practice was pizza and watching the game on rewind. And it was great. It was great.
That's what's up, man. So a few years later, 2004, y'all make it back to the PSAL championship. I think you guys had Drew Gladstone on that team.
We had Drew, Theo Davis, Dwayne Duke Johnson, who played for North Carolina, Greensboro, John Forbes, Vic Morris, all-time leading scorer for Cardozo, signed to go to Hofstra, ended up going to St. Francis. Then things didn't work out. We also had Nick Flagg, who played for Dowling, Skylar Khalil, who went to Loyola, Maryland, finished up at Adelphi, Theo Davis, who ended up going to Gonzaga, and Drew ended up playing for DePaul.
And you guys made it all the way back to the Garden, and then y'all ran into Sebastian Telfair and Lincoln.
They had a lot of talent. What was amazing about that game, not only was it a high-level game, there was 16,800 people. It was played on St. Patrick's Day, a Wednesday night at Madison Square Garden. The game, people had tickets, and people were trying to buy tickets. They stopped letting people in because they didn't have enough security. It would have been a sold-out game. But that 16,800 people was amazing. Was also amazing, that game, that was the game Sebastian Telfair set a PSAL record for committing 17 fouls in a game. The only thing is the refs only called 3 of them.
And you guys were actually in the film Through the Fire.
Yeah.
Like, I know that even though you guys lost that game, like, I'm sure that was pretty good seeing yourself in the film.
Well, you know what? We lost the heartbreaker earlier to them. We beat them without Sebastian in the game. Jamal Jackson at 32 because Sebastian got hurt. We gave it the best shot. We managed to take the lead in the fourth quarter by 1 early, and Nick Flair took a 3 right in front of me. If somehow it goes in, we're up 4, but it circled the rim, and there was no shot clock then. And running after Eugene Lawrence and Sebastian Telfair with a 2 3-point lead for them is not the easiest thing to do. So the shot clock changed. That was funny because when I first started coaching in 1981-82 as the head coach, there was no shot clock. There was no 3-point shot. The 3-point shot did come into effect, in the 90s, but the shot clock I think came in right around 2006 or 2007, which now I would never want to coach a game without a shot clock.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see me? Oh,
yeah, I could. Yeah, it's a little dark in the
getting dark. So should I put the light on in the house?
Yeah, that would be fine.
All right, baby, let me go get the light.
So let me rewind a little bit further. So for many, many years, you were also a part of the Hoop Scoop rankings?
Yeah, I met Clark Francis in 1985. He wanted to have people in all parts of the nation, and I enjoyed it. Hoop Scoop was something that I would go out and scout kids, rate kids, and I got a lot of heat. How come I'm 21? How come I should be 11? When Tom Konchowski was doing his job and he rated you, you never saw his ratings, but Clark Francis had his out there. So, if I did the New York City Metropolitan Area Ring, you actually saw what I did.
Right.
Now, I was also lucky that Clark, because he was such a hard worker, he would go around the nation. He would know many of the New York players. He might say, Ron, 21 really should be 16, 16 should be 30. But he didn't, he couldn't go 100, 200 in depth because he was covering the nation. But it was a lot of fun. I used Hoop Scoop to go to a lot of games, to cover college games. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Hoop Scoop, Clark is still going. But now Ron Flores took it over.
Shout out to my man Ron. He's holding it down out there in California.
Yeah. Ron's a great guy. Clark's at the point, Clark put in 36 years of traveling. People don't realize it. Guys like Ron Flores and definitely Clark Francis, whenever there was a major event, the primetime shootout, the event in Springfield, Mass, Dino Stragona's camp, those are different parts of the country. The high school tournaments, the city of Palm. Clark was physically there. Clark would spend anywhere between 180 and 240 days of the year on the road going to tournaments, physically seeing people in person. That's a grind on you. He did that for 36 years. Going to 5-star camp, going to ABCD camp, going to Mountain Wilson, Oak Hill, coming to New York to scout people. Now, he felt confident that with the 8 or 10 people he had underneath them working for Hoop Scoop, there were parts of the country he didn't have to physically always be there. But like the prep scoop fall tournaments in October, November, Clark would be there. And it grinds you down, Yeah.
So also, you also coached teams at Rucker Park in the 90s. And
I also played at the Rucker.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to talk about. You earned the nickname The Teacher. How did that come about?
Well, when I was young, Ronnie Hershkowitz put a team in. He was a close friend of mine. He died of a heart attack 2004. And Greg Marius, who ran the Rucker, was a classmate of mine at St. John's. So he knew me, I knew him. And when Hirsch and I would go up there and watch the games in the early 80s, he said, why don't you put a team in? So we would put a team in, but we would bring all the high school kids. And Greg credits Hirsch and I for really getting the EBC Entertainers Basketball Classic back up there, because we would have all the young kids, the Marburys, the Alstons, the Skip to My Lose, Conrad McRae, So all of the high school and college kids wanted to play. When we first got there, it was players that were kind of at the end of their career. You know, a couple of guys that play pro overseas that might have another year or two left that were 31, 32. But it became the bomb. And then, you know, I still played. You know, my original nickname in there was Pistol Pete from the Dead. Then I forgot what, yeah, they called me the Professor. Then they called me the Gym Teacher. And then my last nickname, which stuck, is the Teacher. And I kind of like it. I kind of like it.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about the second championship, 2014.
Oh, you know what? The first championship was nobody could ever say another championship is better than your first. You know, your first anything. But all of the heartbreak between the first championship and the second one, all of the heartbreaking losses, there was so many gut-wrenching plays, you know, lucky shots, this, that, when we lost, I mean, so many times it was ridiculous. Everything that could go wrong for so many years, being in the championship, losing to boys and girls, a game we were up 10 at the half, losing 4 times in the semis, you know, so many heartbreaking injuries to kids. Now we get Ray Salnave. We know he's going to lead us to a chip. We believe it. But we thought it was going to be 2016 as senior year, maybe 2015 as junior year. And all of a sudden, here we are playing St. Anthony's on national TV, SNY, down 23-4, on the verge of getting destroyed. People couldn't believe how calm I was. We managed to take the lead, lose late in the game. Ray shot 7 for 14 from the foul line. But after the game, we felt great because it was a great showing and it showed what we can do. That was the only game we lost during the regular season. The next day in the consolation game, we played a very good St. Mary's team, won by 38. And here we are in the Borough Championship, playing construction. We beat them twice in 2 great games. We had a 16-point lead. Blew the lead. Now, we tie it late in the game. Carl Balthazar thinks we're down 1 instead of tied, fouls Justin Foreman. Justin hits the 2 foul shots. We lose. We must have stayed in the locker room at City College crying for 2 hours. Carl would just cry. And maybe that was the best thing because the kids were getting a little cocky, a little too full of themselves. You know, and that construction kick in the ass brought us back to reality. I was really worried because we got seeded 3. We had a very tough boys and girls team at home with Gianni Ford, a team that I thought could beat us. I was adamant that they shouldn't have been seeded lower than 10, but we played a very good game at home. You know, every game it was 6, it was 8, it was 6. We managed to get it up 12 or 14. We won and get out of there. After the game, Carlton Screen Sr. says, Ron. Carlton said, he goes, Ron, you guys got a little chance of doing this. I go, do what? To win the city. I go, like, what are you talking about? You know, I didn't think so because I saw the road that we had to beat was really hard. So that was a Friday. Saturday came because we only had 9 days. The playoffs were in 9 days. So Saturday comes, we prepare for South Shore. We play the early game, 11 o'clock. We make sure everybody's there on time. We're down 14. Ray is playing terrible. On the 3, we managed. A couple of kids were nervous to get in the game because they had a bunch of sophomores and juniors. We managed to get it to 5. The second half, Ray had 29. Hit shots, took over. We managed to tie the game, get the lead. Mazouk Jamo gets fouled on a 3, hits 2 out of 3 to put us up 2. Christian Mondesir gets the foul shot. He misses on the 3rd. We get it up to 4. They cut it to 1 with 11 seconds to go. We get the ball to Ray. He gets fouled. Hits both, thank God. I got nervous because on the first foul shot, he yelled, thinking it was off, but it hit.
Yeah, so pardon us for the technical difficulties, everybody. But yeah, go on, Coach. Let's talk
Well,
about.
I remember, so Brooklyn Collegiate destroyed us. I mean, they beat us by 86 in a scrimmage where we had only 7 players. Ray got thrown out of the game. We were missing a couple of good players. And my assistant coach, who was a cop, a school cop, one of the schools was Brooklyn Collegiate. He, the next day in school, that Monday, because it was a Friday, he had to tell, he was getting like, oh, you guys stink, blah, blah, blah. He says, listen, he was being humble. He goes, listen, we're better than we showed. We were missing some guys, but we ended up, hello?
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah, you see me now?
Yeah.
I got to get back to the Zoom. I see you. Hello?
Yeah, all right.
No, because so it ended up, we played them at Cardozo in the Midwinter Classic. Ray's grandmother died. The funeral was that morning. Ray wasn't even in the building the first quarter. He showed up. We had a nice lead, blew the lead, and we were down, tied it up with a couple of seconds to go. They scored quickly. We didn't call a timeout, came down. Elijah McNeely hit a 3 at the buzzer that, got a little lucky, hit the rim, hit the rope, but then we won. So, of course, when Mike showed up the next day, we cheated on the clock. I mean, we weren't even keeping a clock. It was the PSAL. But you know how kids are. So now we watched the Brooklyn Collegiate Wings game. Nip and tuck. Who should we play? We said, listen, whoever we play can beat us. So, we got to be ready. Brooklyn Collegiate wins on a shot. We play Brooklyn Collegiate. So now the game is at LIU. We're playing the early game. Lincoln's playing Jefferson. I told the coaches when we go, let's go down Flatbush Avenue. Go down Atlantic to Barclays Arena and then make a right to get to LIU so the kids can see what's in store if we win. Now, this was on a Wednesday. We get to LIU, our fans are there, the place is packed, So we beat 2 Brooklyn teams so far. We're playing our 3rd Brooklyn team, Brooklyn Collegiate. The game starts, we're doing pretty good. We're up by a couple. Next thing you know, we're down 5. We got the scout report. We managed to get it 2. We're up 2 at the half. Our ball the second half, terrible inbound pass. Francisco hustles back. Francisco Williams blocks the shot to tie it. We're up 9 late in the 3rd, and Ray steals the ball, and Ray is cramping up. Ray would never eat right, drink right, do anything right as far as that. And, we would give him the bananas for the potassium, but he's cramping up. We managed to be up 9 after 3. We get the ball to start the 4th. We're hoping we can get Ray back. I told Ray, don't be a hero. I'd rather you go an extra minute and make sure the cramps are away. Because if I put you in too quick and you cramp up again, I might need to be up 1, and I can't put you in. Well, make a long story short, one of the funniest things ever, not for Brooklyn Collegiate, for us was, you have Francisco Williams, Christian Mondesir walking to the foul line, Elijah McNeely, and Mazouk Jamo, all on an and one, turning and looking up at the scoreboard at Long Island University and counting on their fingers because they couldn't believe the score. We were up 36.
Whoa, 36 points?
We were up 36. Like, it was like, how did it go from 9 to 36? They were counting on their fingers. So I told Ray, unless a miracle happens for Brook Legion, I'm not putting you back in the game. He said, okay. So now, here we are. I see the athletic director of Lincoln, figuring Lincoln with Isaiah Whitehead. They're going to win, and we're going to be the team. Lincoln was a bad matchup for us because they were physically too strong for us. So I think my players were rooting for Jefferson because they thought maybe we could beat Jefferson. But we had 3 Brooklyn schools down, 1 to go.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? We're watching. Lincoln manages to get up 27-20. It's like it's all she wrote. But what happened is Jefferson, Patrick Brown, Shamari Pons, Rasheem Dunn, the rest of them, next thing you know, they're up 12. It comes down to the last couple of seconds. A 3-point miss at the buzzer. Jefferson wins by 3. We go running out of the building to get home because it's late. We're going to play a 4th Brooklyn team, but not the team everybody thought, Lincoln. It would be Jefferson. I remember my principal and my athletic director calling me on my way home on the ride from LIU, asking me, do you think we have any chance of beating Lincoln? And I told both of them, we have no chance of beating Lincoln. They were like, we have no chance of beating Lincoln? I said, we have no chance. He goes, oh. I go, because we're not playing Lincoln. I go, what? They go, what? I go, we're playing Jefferson. They go, Jefferson beat him? I said, anything can happen. So now here we are, and then the Thursday came, the press conference. That's where Lawrence Pollard, I think got some heat saying, tell Donald Douglas I'm the big dog now. He had the little friendly argument with Tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I kept my mouth shut. So we get prepared for Jefferson. We show up before the game with all of the pain of losing from 99. In the pregame talk in the locker room, I actually broke down and cried. You can watch it in YouTube because I just wanted to prepare the kids for the pain if we lost, because that pain is unbearable. We managed to be up 7 at the half, and my principal comes to me at halftime. He sees me coming out loud. We're up 7. I looked at him. I told my principal, please shut up. You told me that a couple of years ago when we were up 10 against boys at the Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course we blew the lead. We were down 5 with 1:21. Ray hits a nice floater to cut it to 3. We steal the ball, and Francisco, instead of dunking, because he might have missed the dunk, lays it in, gets it to 1. We jump trap. We steal the ball. We have a breakaway. Marzouk blows the breakaway. Fighting for the tip. We had the tip off of Cardozo. Oh, that was crushing. Instead of being up 1 with 11 seconds to go, we're down 1. We press. They can't inbound the ball. They press after a timeout. They get it to Shamari Pons. He misses the first of a 1-on-1, thank God. We're yelling. Carl Balthazar gets the rebound, gives it to Elijah McNeil, and we're yelling, give it a Ray, give it a Ray. Ray goes to the basket. He gets fouled. On the foul line, Pollard calls timeout.
Mm-hmm.
Ray's mother gets a hold of me, tell him to focus. I said, how do I tell a kid 2.5 seconds to go to focus in a city championship game where he's got to hit 2 to win the game? I closed my eyes. I couldn't look at the first one. When I heard the crowd near us yell that it went in, I quickly knew it was in. I told the referee, if it goes in, timeout. I told him, please don't foul on a miss. I closed my eyes again. It went in, timeout. And I had 2 timeouts. The first timeout I used, I had 2 fulls. I just told only the 5 guys in the game I wanted with me, because I just said, please, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. You cannot foul. So then after the first timeout, they had the Quays Andrews long with 1 guy. There was a chance if they threw it long, he could out-jump my guy. So the second timeout, calmed him down again. I put 2 guys long. I put nobody on the ball. People ask me, why didn't you put somebody in the ball? I said, at Barclays Arena, the court is so big, the guy taking the ball out just steps back 3 feet. The guy in the balls, regardless, is irregardless, because he's not going to be able to block it because he can step back. And then I don't want that, because you're going to throw the ball higher. the higher he throws it, the farther he throws it. That means the closer it can get to the Jefferson basket. I didn't want that. So we actually made it. We did an inverse thing where Patrick Brown got the ball, tried to heave it up from 50. Once it was long, wide right, short. Wow, that was the greatest. And then the pregame thing where I cried, for the pain, became a pain, became joy. I started crying a little, tried to not let anybody see it. Billy Medley, my assistant, went off to one side. He cried. Mike Bassett. All of a sudden, Francisco Williams, I saw him crying. So that was it. I said, the hell with it. Let it rain. And it was the greatest cry I ever had.
She is a joy.
Yeah, that was great.
Now, with basically, how did you feel when you got that 800th win? Those milestone wins that kept coming.
Yeah, it feels great. Now I'm getting to no public high school coach in New York State has gotten over 700, minus Chuck Granby, 723, may he rest in peace, and Ed Petrie from East Hampton, Long Island, he has 754. Johnny Mathis has 600. So when you're talking 600 to 850, there's only 4, including me. Nobody above 754. Nobody above 800 minus me. Me at 850. Who knows how many years I'll go. Jack Curran has the record, I think 962 and 972 for the state Catholic. He coached 52 or 54 years. I'm at 39. Hopefully this year I'll start at 40. Who knows? Who knows?
I mean, all right. So with all the success stories you had, a few casualties, unfortunately. One of those was Jermaine Lawrence. He was a really good player for you back in the day. How tough was it for you, losing him?
Well, you know what? Jermaine Lawrence was I was very tight with him. I would take him to the park every day, work on his game in the off season, meet him near his house, take him to the park, PS15. During this year, I would stay with him after school, lift weights, because I thought he had a chance to be a McDonald's All-American, high major, even maybe a potential NBA player. Paid for his SAT course. A friend of mine had no problem me bringing him over his house twice a week when his son was getting tutored, because it was the same 2 classes. And when he just left out of the Clear Blue, that was almost the end of me. My assistants knew that I was at the point where, for a long time, I wasn't the same person, the same coach. To this day, I still have not spoken to Jermaine Lawrence since he left.
Yeah, it's been how many years? 7?
7.
And you still haven't spoken to him in that long?
No, it hurt. I don't know. It's, widely, I know he listened to an outside person. I knew the person, but there was no reason. It's like the day his mother came to get him signed out, the principal said he's a 77 student. He was not a good student in junior. He was a 77 at Cardozo. And the principal said, if he just works a little, 5 points in every class, which is doable, he's an 82 student at Cardozo. So, but that really hurt. And, unfortunate, the haters would say, look at Karma, what happened to him, how he never panned out. That's not the ending as a basketball player that I wanted for him. But, if there was ever a poster boy for leaving Cardozo, for not leaving Cardozo, he would be the poster boy.
That's sad. Anyway, so basically, my biggest question for you is, what keeps you coming back to Cardozo every day after 40 years? Because I'm sure you had opportunities to coach at colleges. You had a bunch of other opportunities. What kept you at Cardozo all these years?
Well, I was such an intense player. I wanted to try to make Cardozo pretty good. Remember, 1-21 the first year. Then I wanted to try to make it very good. Then when I made it very good, I wanted to try to make it great. When I made it great, I tried to keep it great. And maybe I had a little tunnel vision. I should have been a little more selfish for me to move on. Because you know what? There's no rule that says, hey, X amount of games you win in high school, you get a college job. You know, Bob Hurley says, you know, there's no rule. And I realize that, unfortunately, the colleges and the athletic directors and the presidents look down upon the top high school coaches. I actually believe the top high school coaches are as good as the top college coaches, if not better, because they have to deal with so much.
Right.
You know, and then with my father dying, I didn't want to leave my mother. So right there, that limited, you know, where I can go. You know, I wasn't going to go pick up and go to California or Texas, because basically I'm a homeboy. My dream job was to coach St. John's or the Knicks or the Nets. Will it happen? St. John's isn't going to happen. I'm at the point right now, I really don't even know if I would enjoy coaching college, because I wouldn't want to recruit, because I wouldn't want to get involved dealing with half of these kids you got to recruit. You know how you have to kiss their behind. You know, they're going to want money. They're going to want this. I'm not giving anybody nothing. I'm going to give them my life, my expertise.
And it's even worse for the coaches, because it's like you get fired. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're an assistant, you wind up getting nothing, and then you already saw the scandal that went down.
Yeah, I know.
And then a lot of people are running to the Final Four, which I don't understand. And I've been thinking about this too. It's like, why are all these you see every college coach in America at the Final Four? Like,
I'm a member of the NABC, National Association of Basketball Coaches. I've been to every Final Four since 1984, except for 1999, when the state championship was the same weekend, and I had to go to the state championship. But I've been to every one since 1984.
But my thing is, like, all these college coaches going to the Final Four. Like, why? Like,
well, first of all, they have the convention there.
Right.
They have the coaching convention. So if you want to learn, there's 2 or 3 great days of clinicians. But it's like the social gathering and then the networking. You know, if you go there and you work, you know, if you really want to move up, because let's face it, no one's going to hire you on a resume. I can send my resume to St. Francis College as an assistant. Then unless they know me, it's all relationships. It has nothing to do with your resume.
Right.
So, and that's one of the ways you get to know people. Now, I've been blessed. I've been blessed that over the years now. Excuse me?
So that's the main reason that they have to be there, because if they mingle with these coaches, hopefully this is their way of getting a job.
Yeah, you got to get to know people. That's what it is. Now, you know, in New York, you know, you get to know people a different way. Maybe going to this clinic or that game. You know, you start going to a Catholic high school game on a Friday. Coaches are there. You start saying hello. But nationally, it's different.
Yeah,
you know, but hey, I'm blessed. I have a resume that a lot of people know. You know, because of YouTube, because of Vimeo, because of Google. Almost everybody knows me in this business. High school, college, and pro. Wherever I go, they show me mad love. And you know what? Maybe coaching Cardozo is the pinnacle of what I'm going to do coaching, even though I'm starting to do stuff for USA Youth Basketball, and I want to start giving back, doing clinics, and you know, expand what I know to other people, you know? So, you know, people out there, you can follow me on Twitter at Coach Ron Naclerio. You can follow me on Instagram, Ron Naclerio, or Facebook, Ron Naclerio, where, you know, you'll see, I think if you check out what I put up, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, you would follow me, because, you know, people like what I put up. You know, a lot of funny stuff, a lot of basketball stuff, a lot of, you know, heartbreaking stuff. You know, it's good stuff.
Right. So let's talk about the current Cardozo kids. Like, who are some of the kids that, you know, the general public has to watch out for?
Well, if there's going to be a season this year, you know, which I'm praying that we do March to June, because like we talked earlier, you know, the vaccine coming, you know, they got a lot of people who got this. Andrew Lang was my highest scorer last year. Very, very good. There's Shadman Khan, who's he might be the most improved player in Queens. There's Kevin Trujillo, sophomore, ready to get some playing time. There was a JV that was seeded number 2 with a lot of top talent. Isaiah Wright, I think, has got a chance to be the next Ray Salnave at Cardozo. He's a 6'2" sophomore. He has major Division I written all over him. In fact, New Heights, when he tried out for him, they even told me he stood out beyond everybody. We have Yanni Musios. We have Jaden Dowdell, Denham Leslie, Damian Edwards, all young kids. A couple of young kids got in ninth grade that are good. And we have 2 top flight transfers, Jason Johnson and Jalen Simmons from Cardinal Hayes. And I'll tell you this, you give me Jalen, you give me Jason, you give me Isaiah Wright, the sophomore from JV, and you give me Andrew Lang. And those 4 guards are as good as any 4 guards in New York City. I mean, I'll put them up any 4. Now, I got to add some stuff, you know. We have a big man that, you know, powdered last year on the bench, a 6'8", 6'9" kid, Keyshawn Henry. You know, will he be with us? He's still in the school. But, you know, it's amazing how kids are just bouncing from here to there now. They bounce into Cardozo, they bounce out. You know, they go from place A to B to C to D. And that's the part of high school I don't like now, that there's no, you know, the coach has got to show loyalty to the players got to show loyalty to the coach and the program. You know, and there sometimes a kid goes to a school where it's not the right fit, and maybe they should bounce. But, you know, I like to say, show me a kid that came to Cardozo as a 9th grader that stayed, believed in the process, and left and did not get what he deserved. I like to say there's none.
Well said. So with this pandemic and the threat of not being a season, do you see a lot more kids breaking out to go to prep schools or play for club teams? Well,
you know, unfortunately, kids are leaving. You saw boys and girls lose the kid Brantley to Our Savior Lutheran. John Bound, who had to be a top 5 preseason team. Very, very good 3 seniors and a very good junior. 2 out of the 4. 1 has left, the point guard Diallo. One, I think the kid Duabite, he's leaving in the next week or so. So there's 2 of them left. But I think the 2 of them will left probably say, why am I here? Let me leave. So unfortunately, you know, you can't blame a kid to go somewhere and get something when staying, you get nothing.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of coaches in New York City, they don't, well, particularly mainly in the Catholic League, they're always talking about, oh, why should the kid leave? You know what I'm saying? Like, we have a great league, which is all good and well for them, but for the PSAL kids, you know, a lot of them, they may have to go to prep school because of, you know, lack of exposure. You know,
well, here's the problem. Everybody thinks you can just pick up and go to prep school. Prep schools cost money, and unless you're really a top flight kid, you know, if you're a top flight kid, do you have that money? Because you know, maybe you're the bomb in your mind, but you're a bum in other people's minds. You know. So you know, I mean, and here's the problem. At this late date, the prep schools are going on. Most of the scholarship money has already been given out.
That's true.
That's why I mean, when we will come back. I'm hoping there is some sort of a salvageable season for 2020-21. And, you know, the powers to be, you know, we have to do a lot of exposure games, a couple of exposure events like the Sullivan games. And, you know, hopefully the NCAA would let, you know, the D1 coaches out, you know, at a site, because this is the 1 year rules are made to be broken. Like kids this year can transfer. And kids this year, when they play, it doesn't count as a year. So if you're a junior, instead of being a senior next year in college, you're still a junior. Well, hopefully, you know, they'll make the rules so that the high school kids could, you know, come back. And I'm wondering if there's a kid of age and got a good lawyer and said, you know what, I'm being deprived because of this pandemic of a chance at a scholarship. I do not want to graduate from high school. I deserve another year to be able to play. And he took that to court. I wonder what the judge would say in court.
Yeah, man. I mean, college kids are able to do it, so why can't a high school kid do it?
Well, here's the problem. If the high school kids can't do it, they got to move up. But they can't move up because nobody's really moving out in college. So what's going to happen to all of those kids?
That's the thing. The prep schools is going to get richer next year, unfortunately. You know, that's just what it is.
I didn't realize it. We've been talking for a long time, man. This is good, man. I didn't realize. I just finally saw the clock.
Yeah. Wow. So this is one of my questions one of my favorite questions on my podcast before I lead to the final question. If you could go back in the time machine to 1981, what would you tell a young Ron Naclerio at 24 years old as he takes the Cardozo job and is done playing baseball?
I would have not gotten into high school. I would have tried to go college or the pros. I would have been a little more selfish because, you know, the amount of money that these college coaches get at the high level or the pros. I mean, I was teasing Royal Ivey, who played for me, you know, we talked about, who now is the Brooklyn Nets assistant coach. Last year for the New York Knicks, when you're on the road, the players and the coaches get meal money. It's either $129 or $139 a day. And Royal Ivey made more in meal money than I did in my salary. You know, and you don't want to do it for money. You do it out of love. But, you know, after a while, you know, you would like to be able to walk to Peter Luger's and not worry about, you know, getting, you know, an appetizer with the steak, you know. And then, unfortunately, high school, a couple of people said, aren't you getting a little tired of it? You know, aren't you getting to the point where, like, you think it's beneath you? Because I don't think I have to do as good a coaching job now to keep it at the same level. I think I still have to do a good coaching job to get to the you know, to the chip or something. But I think there's so many coaches out there that aren't as dedicated as me, don't put the time in it, don't put the effort in it, aren't in it 365 days a year. So you can just win doing an 80, 90% job. You know, and then unfortunately, you know, there were people at Cardozo that, you know, they love the job and 3 o'clock comes, they're out of the building, you know, and, you know, I had an office that I built that was a shrine that I don't have. So walking into the building's a little different now. But I mean, I still love it, but, you know, I don't know. And I think this, a lot of people hearing me talk would probably love to be in my situation. So, you know, what can you do? Life goes on.
Final question. What's next in the future for Ron Naclerio and the Cardozo judges?
Hopefully practice or tryouts. You know, that means the pandemic is over. But the future is, you know, the JV kids hopefully will be able to take the jump to varsity in the next year or two and do on that level what they did on the JV level. On the JV level, they got seeded to. They didn't lose the game in Queens. You know, there were a lot of games where the bottom 5 got to play a lot because the scores were so lopsided, you know, and you know, hopefully for the next couple of years, we can continue Cardozo being what the city and the metropolitan area and the nation think of Cardozo.
Coach, thank you for coming on to share your testimonial, and I wish you nothing but the best moving forward.
Dave, you know what? I seen you, how you've grown, how, you know, life hit you with some hardships and you managed not to let them, you know, take you down. And congratulations, even though it took you a little longer to get that college degree than you want. But you're a bright and upcoming person in this business, whether you stay in the basketball writing business or the video business or not. But you know, seeing you're the next group that's going to continue New York City's greatness in the basketball world. And I'm glad to know you. And if you ever need me for anything, just give me a holler. All right?
My God. Well, everybody, this is episode 89 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to my guy, Mr. Ron Naclerio, for coming on. For those of you guys from St. John's, Bayside, Queens, and also all alumni of Cardozo High School, and anybody in the New York City basketball community, definitely check this out when it comes out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. Stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.
Bye-bye.